In Kenya, almost half of the nation's women experience some kind of physical violence, but a new campaign takes aim at the roots of the problem.
They want to get back to doing what they do best. Farmers in Nigeria's northeast calling for a reinvestment in agriculture in their region.
And in Mali, an accident deals a young girl a setback, but a clever builder steps in to give her life a boost, literally. Africa 54 starts right now.
Hello, I'm Chamberlain Oso at Channels Television here in Lagos. Welcome to our show. We'll take you around the continent and bring you a variety of stories from across Africa.
And I'm Vincent McCory, Voice of America, coming to you from our global headquarters in Washington. We welcome you to the show, everyone.
We'll start in Nigeria's northeast. Boko Haram's terror attacks disrupted food production in the region, but farmers are eager to get back to work. At a meeting of the All Farmers Association of Nigeria in Gombe State, growers called for recapitalizing agriculture. Here's our report.
Devastation from Boko Haram attacks in Nigeria's northeast is not limited to destruction of homes, killing and displacement of millions of people. The violence has also affected food production in the region, the country's food production zone. With the return of relative peace to the region, farmers, government officials and representatives of the Bank of Agriculture gather at this interactive session in Gombe State to deliberate on urgent steps needed to revive farming and other agricultural activities.
The objective of holding this meeting are as follows. 1. To assess the level of performances of agriculture in each of the states in terms of support to farmers, credit facilities, provision of input, and conducive environment for farming activities accordingly. 2. To x-ray and examine the level of federal government intervention in agriculture in this zone, that is the northeast.
Increase in food prices and food shortage as a result of the drop in food production is a problem participants at this meeting agree can be addressed by government at all levels by putting structures in place to revive the agriculture sector.
The federal government is doing a tremendous amount. We have the commission now in place. We have associations like ours, multilateral, bilateral, unilateral agencies are all there. So it's everyone's efforts. Let's get the people back to their farms, let them farm and let food come out.
The managing director of the Bank of Industry expresses the bank's willingness to provide the necessary assistance to farmers.
As peace returns, we are going to increase our support to farmers so that they will be able to grow various crops and livestock that will ensure food security and also some form of export.
If resolutions from the meeting, which include the need for credit facilities to farmers at a single-digit interest rate, are implemented, agricultural activities in the area will return to their glory days.
The UN's Special Envoy on West Africa, Mohammed Ibn Chambers, has called for increased aid to Nigeria's northeast, saying that intervention could save the lives of thousands of children, or better security is part of this equation. And joining us via Skype to discuss that topic is security analyst Chidi Wanu. Welcome to the program.
Thank you for having me.
Well, Chidi, you were in some parts of the northeast recently. What were your observations of the security situation there?
Currently, the security situation has vastly improved from the last time I was there, and also, if you look at it from 2009 till now, this has to be one of the safest periods to be in the northeast, particularly in Maiduguri. Maiduguri itself is very, very safe. The approaches to Maiduguri, particularly from the east, are safe, and you can traverse it both day and also at night, but with a little bit of risk. Most of the internal checkpoints are manned by vigilantes, and at the same time, you've got a very small presence of police and the military, but most of the police and military are on the outskirts. So Maiduguri itself is very, very safe, but that only tells one element of the story. You've down to the south of Maiduguri, bordering the Sambisa forest. Now, this is a much more risky area because the enemy now, or Boko Haram, is pushing out of Sambisa forest in reaction to the Nigerian offensive there, and they were ambushing vehicles on the road. So the only way you can traverse, down to Damboa or even to Bama or Tikwa or places like this is armed military convoys. But the ironic thing is that when you go south of the Sambisa forest, down towards BU, northern Adamawa, it actually becomes relatively safe again. You can now move around with a certain amount of ease, and it's less restrictive.
The improved situation is good, but there are fears that the humanitarian crisis could lead to possible radicalization of children and youths, considering the terrorists have lost many of their fighters. How should the government avoid this?
The current humanitarian crisis is very severe. As I said, Maiduguri is a little bit of a misnomer in terms of what's happening in Borno State, because the IDPs there are relatively well looked after. Those in the camps are quite well looked after now, especially after the recent scandals. And the IDPs that are living within the community are also being looked after mainly by foreign NGOs. Outside Maiduguri, in, let's say, for example, Bama, Dikwa, all these other kind of places, there's a much more precarious situation. So there is an element of risk associated with the humanitarian crisis. However, that risk is more towards the welfare of the inhabitants of this area rather than a return to radicalization. The feeling towards Boko Haram is almost 100% negative. I heard, I spoke to people away from any kind of influence such as military police, and there's nothing but hatred for Boko Haram. So it would be very difficult for Boko Haram to offer anything to people that would make them want to join Boko Haram or make them want to lend their support without some form of coercion. So I don't think that the humanitarian crisis will help Boko Haram, but what it will do is maybe make the IDP or refugee camps targets for Boko Haram, because that is a definite source of food for them.
Security analyst Chidi Wanu, thank you for joining us today on Africa 54.
Thank you.